Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. In these videos, what I'm doing is I'm explaining as a former Persuadable, because I would have voted for Kamala Harris a month ago. I've been independent, I've been centrist, I've been libertarian, whatever you want to call it. Most of the time I've been voting, for the past solid 20 years. And this election was what tipped me to become a Republican. Not only vote for Trump, but specifically identify as Republican. So I appreciate if you've been watching my other videos and that's how you found this one. I think by now you've been able to see the nuance of my approach in this. I still consider myself someone who is in the middle and always looking for balance. Yet I have found an identity as a Republican, and I think part of that, Elon Musk had pointed this out a while back, is that the middle now is not what the middle used to be. It feels that the left is so far to the side, to this one side, that the middle by default kind of looks like Republican. Joe Rogan and Bill Maher have both, I watch them regularly, they both talk about how they identified as Democrats this whole time. But when you hear them speak, they talk more like they're Republican. And that's sort of that invisible shift that we're seeing that I feel has ultimately led in Trump being elected president again here in this election in 2024. Now, in my approach, something else I hope that you will see is that I truly have zero desire to convince anyone else to believe like me. In other words, I'm not trying to get anybody to become a Republican or wish they would have voted for Trump and stop being Democrat. That is not any of my desire at all. And really, to a good extent, I'm not even making these videos to defend myself or defend my belief system. More specifically, what I'm wanting to do is, from sort of a middle of the road perspective, explain this is why this is happening. So I think largely my intended audience for these videos are current Democrats. And I'm saying this in complete un-irony, okay? There's nothing ironic about what I'm about to say. I make these videos to help you in the future know how to navigate. I mean that with my heart, because why not learn from what a man of sound mind has to say? Hopefully you'll see I don't actually have an agenda other than to just have a middle of the road conversation. I've had some people say, well, tell me exactly what it is about Trump's foreign policy or financial plan that you agree with. And see, that's exactly what I'm not interested in. And I'll tell you why. Because that turns this into a debate. And there are other channels that are willing to do that. But for me, I'm wanting to show sort of why has this invisible shift occurred? Why would someone who was persuadable a month ago actually vote for Trump and now identify as Republican? That's what these videos are about. So I want to, if we're really putting a finger on it, I think this is really the takeaway. So for me, what I've seen is, we've seen this merge of minorities and men as far as from a voting perspective. We've seen them actually merge to kind of form their own team that's ended up voting for Trump. And I think it's important that we unpack that. So I want to say that again. We've had these two subgroups, men, male voters, and minorities. Specifically, when I say minorities, really I'm referring to ethnic minorities. They've merged. By default, they have enough in common, and I'm about to explain what that is. And they, from a completely unorganized perspective, voted for Trump. And I feel that was a lot of the reason why Trump won the election. So I want to unpack that and explain that. When we look at most men I know, at least in my own life, and when we look at most people who are classified as minorities, my real life experience has been this. Both men and minorities are actually hardworking. They are very supportive of their family. They want to be seen as strong, not as weak. They want to be seen as providers, not needing a handout or the government to help them out. I have also seen that they want to, as far as minorities, they want to be seen as American. And I think that's a major point the Democrats are missing here. They have historically focused on, and this is how I feel, sort of patting themselves on the back for saying, we take care of the people that everyone else sees as invisible, and we're going to take care of minorities. But I think what's shifted over time culturally in the United States is that minorities aren't necessarily looking for that. They really want a fair shot. They want to be able to, again, be providers, be seen as hardworking, and ultimately be seen as, I'm going to say, having basically the power to make things happen themselves instead of depending on, again, the government. So I think that's different than traditionally the way the Democrats have I'm going to say, catered to minorities. We've been hearing that the population of minorities has been growing here in the United States. And I think that's very important. You can track the numbers on that. We all know that. We all know that white people in the United States are less of a majority, and the projections show that eventually white people will be actually the minority themselves. But I think the Democrats have underestimated the true collective identity of how minorities want to be seen. Again, hardworking, loyal to family, self-sustaining. There's this focus on jobs and work, and therefore the economy. And these are things that people who voted for Trump said that they cared about. The economy specifically. We're also seeing, I think, a conflation of minorities and illegal immigrants, that they're not the same. And I think this has made it, I've seen in the comments of the videos I've made this week, I've had so many people say that they are, Mexican American, Cuban American, Puerto Rican American, whatever it is that they identify in the comments. And they refer to people who come into the country illegally, saying, well, that's not fair. I'm here legally, they're not. So I feel that the Democrats have not separated the two. There are illegal immigrants, and there are people who are here legally who are minorities. But again, also in addition to that, what I'm finding with minorities is they're not wanting the label of minority. Like, yes, they're proud of their heritage, Mexican American, Cuban American, Filipino American, whatever it is. They're proud of that culture. They're not denying that. But ultimately, that's not really the identity that they are wanting to be seen. They're wanting to be seen as American. And it really is that simple. Now, I want to close this video out by pointing out, which I feel is another misstep for the Democrats, and that has caused, again, men and minorities to merge to accidentally form this almost team that voted Trump in. And that is this. As I've looked through the comments, and I invite you to do the same, look through these videos I've made about Trump. Look at the comments. Now, there are plenty of emotionally intelligent Democrats who have said, Nick, thank you for explaining your side of it. While I disagree with you voted for Trump, at least I understand where you're coming from, and this will help us in the next election. And that's nothing but respect for me, for people who say that. But there are plenty of people who do not have the emotional intelligence, and instead what they're doing is they're basically name calling. They're saying that I'm low information, uneducated, I'm immoral, I'm stupid, I'm wrong, and they're name calling. But here's the thing, and I keep harping on this, I keep pointing this out. When you say that towards me, you're saying that towards the minorities also that voted Trump in. So it's easier to look at a white man and say, you're the problem. But the thing is, there were a lot of minorities who have now switched over and voted Trump in. So if you say to me, you're low information, you're uneducated, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're immoral, all these things, if you say that to me, you say that to the minorities, which seems by default racist, which is ironic because Democrats have labeled themselves as the ones helping minorities. Instead, they've alienated minorities in the process. And of course, again, if you didn't hear me say this before, I don't wave this around and talk about it like it's some kind of big deal, but for what it's worth, and I think this makes this even more interesting. This channel here started years ago when I got my DNA test results back, and I already knew that I was of Hispanic heritage. I already knew that. But the funny thing is I am officially 53% Hispanic, officially. So by default, I actually am not only a man who voted for Trump, I'm actually technically minority status Hispanic that voted for Trump. Now, and I will say, on all the surveys we have to do it here in the United States when it asks you for your race or ethnicity, my entire life, I've always checked the box for Hispanic. And the reason for that is because the option for white specifically says not Hispanic next to it. So for that reason, by default, knowing that I'm slightly over half Hispanic, there is that. So a lot of people just see me as another white guy, and I'm willing to identify that way. I'm also, at the same time, not shying away from the fact that I have Hispanic heritage, specifically Mexican heritage. And I think that's important too. That I'm not going one way or the other. I'm not saying, hey everybody, I'm Hispanic. And I'm not also here to say, hey, I'm 100% white, because I'm not. I'm both. And I think that again makes this whole thing more interesting. That I really do represent both groups, don't I? A male, a former persuadable male who has never really identified as either side this entire time up until this election. And I also happen to be Hispanic as well, however you want to dice that up. So I'd love to hear from your comments. Let's keep this going, because this, I feel, is a healthy conversation. I'm not interested in a debate. That's boring to me. A healthy conversation in emotional intelligence where we're not demonizing each other, but what can we agree on? That's what I'm interested in. All right, your comment belongs right here.